where does it come from? I feel like we're kind of riding a wave a little bit in that way. It was something that was personally important to me when I came to Medicine Hat and came to this library. I do believe in the public libraries being an open institution that's there for everybody, and there's a real strength to that. And I've just been supported in that at every turn by the City of Medicine Hat, by political and administrative leadership, by the staff of the library, by the board of the library, and that's huge.
This episode of Bring Back the Porch brought to you by Bernie Leahy, River Street Realty. Let's get you home.
Hi, and welcome to Bring Back the Porch. I'm very excited to have our guest today is Ken Feser, like laser, from the Medicine Hat Public Library. Welcome to the Porch.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
I would like to talk to you about a million things that happen at the library, going on at the library. We are going to be a little bit topical, so I think since the budget came out yesterday, I noticed you have a book about Mark Carney, and I thought maybe why don't we start with the book? That's a good opener for if you want to talk to somebody or meet somebody as a new person or a new guest. Talking about something they like a book is a way to get to know somebody. So tell us about this book you brought in.
Sure. It's my comfort zone, maybe, to talk about books a little bit. So I did bring in Mark Carney's book, Values, Building a Better World for All, which is just my read right now. I'm not particularly endorsing or, him or, the Liberals or anything like that, but it's a really good book. I'm really enjoying it. I guess for me, the surprise of this book was I went into it expecting kind of one of those political, biographies, that are sort of fairly simple and inspiring, all this stuff. This is kind of a deep read to me. It's an economics book more than a political book, I would say. And I find the ideas really interesting. Yeah.
I like the idea that he called it values because it has double meaning, right?
Yeah. He's talking about value in the economic sense, capitalist value, and but also that value is built on our values, the what's important to us, what we consider, what we prioritize, those sort of more social values, and I think that's a really great way to analyze or to put humanness into economics in a way. And also it sort of reflects something that a journey I've been on in my time in the library around values-driven leadership and basically making decisions based on our values, which I think is a very powerful and good way to do things.
I have had the chance to come and visit the library over the summer this year. I was laid off from Chat TV and had a little extra time on my hands every day. And I found the library give me a place to go. And I spent some time wandering around upstairs and downstairs and trying to find books that I thought would be interesting. And I know that it's the bane of existence probably for the library is people come in and go, what should I read? But I found
we love it.
I found wandering around. I actually stumbled into the reference area of all places and picked up a book about Bow Island, which had a picture of my great-grandparents in it.
Oh, cool.
So I thought, there's resources that people probably don't even realize are part of the library. And the other thing I noticed, and it's something that should be complimented to you and your staff, is the idea that people smiled, people waved, people said, can I help you with anything? Are you looking for something? That idea of inclusion and empathy, I think, is a great reflection of not only our society, but of our library, that it is a place where people can come in and be seen. How did you get there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that question. Thanks for the compliment too. I feel like, to sort of the thing you started with about how there's something for everyone. I do think there is in the library. I believe very much in the role of the library and the mission of the library, and we do have something to offer everyone. And one of our challenges is that we have to kind of explain, to everybody fresh that the library is not kind of what you might have thought it was from, your perceptions 20 years ago, or kind of depictions in media and that sort of thing. We have a slogan that's "We're more than just books," and I mean that's literally true. We have lots of other collections. You can get a sewing machine or a serger or a badminton racket, things like that from the library. We have different types of collections, and then we also have lots of different services. We have a social worker in the library. We are very programming heavy. There's always things that are happening at the library, events and that sort of thing. So that's part of, I guess, yes, we are, we do have something for everybody, or we have lots to offer. And then the kind of, being the community hub, or the place where lots of different people can come together, that is really important to me personally. And where does it come from? I feel like we're kind of riding a wave a little bit in that way. It was something that was personally important to me when I came to Medicine Hat and came to this library. I do believe in the public libraries being an open institution that's there for everybody, and there's a real strength to that. And I've just been supported in that at every turn by the City of Medicine Hat, by political and administrative leadership, by the staff of the library, by the board of the library, and that's huge. The board is very much behind this, by the community. It's just the path has been opened up and made easy for us to be that. And there's a huge power in it. It's really, it's kind of amazes me every day that we are a place where different groups in society come and mingle quite peacefully and get along. And some of the most challenging patrons, some of the folks who have struggles in their lives that maybe play out in the library, they really bring something beautiful to the library, a diversity, and they're not people are not hard to work with if you go in with a feeling of that you want to lift them up and lift everybody up and find positive resolutions and respect people. It's amazing. If you treat people like that, even the most difficult people tend to be very reachable, and you can kind of leave them in a better place than they were. What could be better than that?
Yeah. And I you have, I've witnessed it where you probably didn't realize this at the time, but there was a lady struggling to find books that were large print. And you just sort of said, oh, they're right over here. Like, even as working as a chief librarian, you still have time for everybody. And I love the idea that the role of the library is just to be a place to connect. And books offer that as well, because a lot of times books offer maybe a perspective you weren't expecting. You get involved with a character if it's a fiction book, or if it's a real life person and you hear their real story. Books can be that sort of touchstone to communicate with other people. And so the library's being a touchstone for the community, I think, is really cool. Now, you are trying to do some different things. You have this beautiful theater. It is going to be showing movies all through, well, it does every Sunday, right?
Yep.
A family movie. You have a big one coming up at the end of the month called Walking with Dinosaurs, to kind of end your dinosaur-themed month of Dino-Vember.
Yes.
And then you move in kind of into Christmas movies. So you've got Home Alone and Home Alone 2, and I think Jingle All the Way. So those are great kind of things to have for families that are looking for a cheap alternative to a Sunday afternoon. But also you are trying to bring something different, and that's maybe you want to talk about some of the music that you're bringing into the theater.
Yeah, thanks for the chance to talk about that. So we do have this beautiful theater that was renovated in a pretty difficult project just before I came here. I got quite lucky that way. There was asbestos remediation, all kinds of fun stuff that the previous person had to deal with, and I walked into a nice, shiny theater, and it's a good community resource. It is, of all our spaces, it's probably the least utilized, or it's the one that sits idle the most. We have meeting rooms as well, and it's really easy to fit stuff in meeting rooms. There's always people who want to use meeting rooms and stuff. A more specialized space like this, not so easy. So and there are lots of activities, but just not quite to the level of those other spaces. So I would really like to see this theater in use all the time. And so we came up with the idea of doing musical concerts. We have, I think there's 5 total. We've had one happen already. We have another one coming up the Wednesday after tomorrow, so 8 days from now. I should have brought the day of the week with me, or the day of the month, but I didn't. But it's coming up next week anyways. On Wednesday night, we have a fiddler or a violinist and a guitarist, a kind of a folk duo like that. So it's going to be a great concert, and I'm really hoping we can get people to come out to that. And then next year, January, February, we have 3 more concerts of that sort coming. Yeah.
Are they local musicians or touring musicians?
These are touring musicians through an organization called Home Roots or Home Routes, not sure of the pronunciation, but it's a, they basically, the theory behind it is that typically people actually do home concerts with this organization, and then the musicians stay in the homes of the hosts. So it was a good avenue to get these good folk singers, performers. We are putting them up in a hotel and they're playing in our theater. So it's a little different than some places, but good model. Yeah.
Is there a cost involved to go to the show?
They have been free, but our first concert, we didn't get a huge turnout. I kind of thought, naive me, I thought, if we have a good concert with good musicians and it's free, we're going to pack the place. And we didn't have a huge turnout for that first show. So I actually talked with Pete and Ina, who are the hosts of the Jar Bar, if people have heard of that, up in Vinerville. It's a little venue that has some fantastic music, and it's just the greatest place. If you ever get a chance to go to the Jar Bar, go. But I sort of wanted to talk to him about the business of how do you attract people to concerts and, get a crowd out and everything, because we don't really know that. And one of the things he said was, free is just a little, it doesn't necessarily work because there's no commitment. And, when it gets right down to it, I'm guilty of this, when it comes right down to the night, do I really want to, put on pants and shoes and go out and do something? Well, I'll just stay home. So maybe it'll be better if we charge just a nominal amount for tickets, just to have that commitment, So what we're thinking is that for the 3 concerts in the new year, we'll probably charge $10 a ticket for the concerts, 3 for $20. And we're going to partner with with local charities and give some of the money to the local charities. And then also this will help us to pay the musicians, because I do think it's important that artists get paid for their work. We are paying them, but this just makes it that much easier to do it. So these concerts will be coming up in January, February. There will be that nominal charge, and I really hope people come out and see some good music, because these are good performers. They're really high quality performers.
That sounds really exciting to be able to sort of have something a little bit different in the theater too than just movies.
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
I want to talk to you about a couple of the programs that are going on. One of the things that we kind of talked about before we started the podcast was reconnecting to play. And could you maybe describe that for our listeners and our audience, exactly what is reconnecting to play?
Yeah, the premise of it basically is adults come to the library and do playful things like, we've had Nerf gun wars, that sort of illustrates what we're talking about here better than anything, I think, running around the library, closed library on a Friday night with Nerf guns and shooting each other. And the idea, there is a kind of a method to the madness. It really is that as adults, we need to be lighthearted and do recreational things and reconnect to play. We're sometimes a little bit too serious, and this is a good way to de-stress and also to meet people, make connections, all the good things. It's that sort of higher level of stuff that places like libraries provide. So we have a social worker, and she has spearheaded this along with our adult community librarian, who's sadly left the library just very recently and is going home to Ontario. We'll be replacing that position, but it was them that started this, and it's the kind of thing, programming is really interesting because it's an art, it's not a science, and you never know what's going to take off. You sort of throw spaghetti against the wall, and if it sticks, it sticks. And this program, it could be a hard one to get going, to get people to drop their adult role and to sort of run around and laugh and all that stuff. It's not easy, but they've really built this up. It's become one of our most popular programs. There's a waiting list. It's packed every time it happens, and that's because of the people that were doing it who brought their energy and their passion and their love to this.
So speaking of the waiting list and that, is there an age range that this is designed to be for?
This is for adults, but I think, any adult would be happy. If you're, 60 like me and you want to come on down and shoot Nerf guns, sign up, you'll be welcome. Yeah.
I also noticed that there's a program going on called Adulting 101. I'm assuming that's for maybe young adults that are sort of getting ready to step out into the real world and they need some practical education.
Yes,
on
they
what it's
do.
like to live on their own.
We did in our time, and they do now for sure. Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's for young adults. We have a really active young adult program. We have a room we call Honeycomb House that's got lots of cool things in it. There's tons of cool programming that happens around that. It's something that's pretty important to us, and there's again a definite both local community need and also universal need in the world today for young adults to get some help, getting established and finding their place and finding good things in the community. So yeah, that's one where they will learn all kinds of skills that you wouldn't necessarily pick up in your day-to-day life.
So we've talked about adults and we've talked about young adults. I want to just take a second. I looked at your calendar of events before you came on, and I was intrigued to find Santa Has Lost It scavenger hunt. So is that taking place, I'm assuming, maybe in the children's library?
Yeah, and scavenger hunts are so much fun. It's what we call a passive program. We don't actually have to be there, in front of a group or whatever. So it's economical for us to do these things, and also a lot of fun. I've always loved the idea of it gives kids something to do in the building. So yeah, you run around, you collect, your items and stuff like that, and then there's typically prizes at the end of it. And yeah.
So that's something that folks can be looking forward to in the month of December.
Yeah, and I should mention that all of our programs, there's stuff happening constantly in the library. Again, our community loves programming, more even so than, relatively speaking, than books and that sort of collection. So we're very programming heavy. There's something happening. We're open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. There's typically something every night in that period. Sundays we call Family Day. There's stuff every Sunday from 1 to 5 for just drop in, and there's giant blocks and all kinds of things, movies like we mentioned. So programs are very important.
Yeah, I know that you also have community coffee on Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. Again, talking about sort of being a place for everyone. So we saw this opportunity a couple years ago. A local agency had a grant available for providing casual employment for people who kind of need it, for whatever reason, marginalized folks, struggling people, just a little bit of employment, really. And the reason for that is to put cash in people's hands, for work done, which is important, and to create a sense of community, to bring people in, again, people who are isolated or alienated from sort of mainstream culture, give them a place in the community. And then the last one is to build some skills for, resume and that sort of thing. And strangely enough to me, nobody else really was going for this, and I'd heard about it, so we put together a proposal, and mostly built around, as you said, community coffee, and we have that running. So we get a grant for this, and we basically bring people in, and they host a coffee for us. And these are people, again, who are struggling with one thing or another, in their lives. And it really varies, the groups. But I have to say, these folks, they're amazing. They're probably, like almost, I'd say, better than regular employees in terms of showing up every time that they're asked to, and that sort of thing. We just had no problems with these folks at all. It's really been, an amazing thing for me to see and learn. And they are there, and they do Monday and Friday mornings. Come on down to the library. We have free coffee on. You can meet some folks who maybe are in a different place than you, or maybe the same place as you, in their journey. And it's a very positive thing, and we've had really good results. Those folks have also been doing work for us. They help with our book sales, or I should say the Friends of the Library. That's a nonprofit that supports us and holds our book sales. So these casual cash employment folks work for that. And it's beautiful. Everybody just has a great time. The ladies who run the book sale love these workers, really appreciate the help that they bring. And it's interesting because we survey these folks who do that program. And, if you're poor or in financial, difficulty, a little bit of money makes a big difference. So we're paying people, $50 or whatever they get for a shift. That can make a huge difference in a person's life. That might, mean that they can keep their phone and sort of all the connections and things that enables, or they avoid, an NSF charge on a check or a rent payment or something that would end up putting them even farther behind the hole than they were. So the money is a big deal. deal for folks. It makes a big difference. But what they self-report as being the most important thing for them out of this is a sense of connection, a sense of purpose, a sense of dignity, a sense of being part of something that's part of the community. And again, that's our secret sauce. That's our superpower that we bring to the table, as we can create that.
Well, I really hope that we can continue to have conversations about what's going on in the library, and that you and other members of the library will come to the porch and have conversations with us.
You got to talk to some of our folks who are doing amazing things, like Crystal, the social worker, who does the both, is involved with the community coffee stuff and the connecting to play, and also the amazing things that the social worker at the library does. And we got a whole bunch of folks for you to talk to.
That's good to hear, because I like to talk. Ken, thank you so much for being on the porch.
Thank you.
And we will see you in the new year.
Awesome. Thank you.